My first. Awesome too. So
Ready? Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order the August 17th, 2026 meeting of the Healdsburg City Council. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Hagley.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly. Here. Councilmember Mitchell. Here. Vice Mayor Edwards.
here.
Mayor Herod.
Here. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. We did have a closed session today, and I'm not sure exactly.
No reportable action.
Yeah, there's no reportable action. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to announcements. We have a proclamation declaring August 26th, 2026 as Women's Equality Day. Councilmember Evelyn Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. So proclamation of the City Council of the City of Healdsburg declaring August 26th, 2026, Women's Equality Day in the City of Healdsburg. Whereas on August 26, 2026, we mark the 106th anniversary of the enactment of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which secured the right to vote for women. And whereas to secure this right, women were forced to conduct 56 referendum campaigns, 480 campaigns to get legislators to submit suffrage amendments, 277 campaigns to state party conventions, 19 campaigns to 19 successive Congresses, and get the consent of 36 states and more. And whereas women constitute nearly 50% of our workforce, the majority of the students in our colleges and graduate schools, and an increasing number of primary breadwinners. And whereas over the past 3 years, women's incomes have declined as of mid-2026, women working full-time earn 81% of what men earned, down from 85% in 2023. And whereas even with the gains women have made, women's roles as equal members of our society and their rights are being challenged and reversed in multiple arenas, including the fundamental right to vote, access to reproductive health care, and protection from being the subject of personal violence. And whereas here in Sonoma County, the Board of Directors in 1976 established the Commission on the Status of Women with the express purpose of working to ensure equal rights and opportunities that enhance the quality of life for all women and girls and address the issues of discrimination and prejudice that negatively affect women in Sonoma County. And whereas more work remains to be done in many areas that directly impact equal pay for equal work, including access to quality, affordable child care, affordable housing, comprehensive health care for women, and mental health care. So now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Healdsburg hereby declares August 26th as Women's Equality Day in the City of Healdsburg.
All right, thank you. If you're wondering, no, normally we have somebody receive a proclamation, but that person was not able to make it this evening and sends their regrets. But thank you for the proclamation, Councilmember Mitchell. We're going to move on now to City Manager reports.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few updates for you all. First off, I'm very happy to share a couple of updates on construction projects throughout town, most notably March Avenue. That's been obviously ongoing for a couple of months now with some of the a lot of the concrete work. We're getting to what I hope is the most exciting part, which is the repaving of March Avenue scheduled to start on Monday, August 24th, so 1 week from today, and run through Friday, September 2nd. So it's actually a relatively quick schedule of work for this phase of the work, which is the most impactful. That's an approximate schedule, and obviously things could adjust, but our team has it mapped out really carefully in terms of what areas will be paved at what time and how that will impact road closures. There will be eastbound and westbound closures at various times throughout that project, obviously, but we'll work hard to make it as minimally disruptive as possible. But it's a good kind of disruption in that we are at the point of getting that paved at long last. So that is exciting. Also want to note that painting is starting at the Abel de Luna Community Center for the multicultural project. We've actually got color swatches if anybody's interested up on the building at this time. So that will be underway and will happen relatively quickly also. So 2 really exciting projects that I know we're all looking forward to seeing completed. Probably less impactful, but I'll also note that we have work at the airport right now. So the Healdsburg Airport taxiway is undergoing rehabilitation. So there are impacts for those using the airport, but otherwise I just wanted to share this is a project that I know the council has seen before in terms of funding and capital planning. So that's underway too, and we'll have that wrapped up relatively soon. So just a few project highlights, but some big ones, and we're excited to get those wrapped up. Also wanted to mention a few events that are coming up. First off, this coming Wednesday, at 5 o'clock is our community conversations. The council will recall that we are seeking in each of the 5 city council districts to have community meetings where we can get out and talk to residents about issues that might be germane to their part of town. So our first of those will be Wednesday at the Riverview Clubhouse at 5 o'clock. It is focused on that part of town, but of course, anybody is welcome, and we won't turn anybody away. We're going to bring department directors that we think are most relevant to the issues going on in each part of town as we do this. And we'll provide very brief updates, but our intent is to keep those updates to a minimum and just be able to give people a chance to provide feedback and ask questions and interact with city staff. So we're looking forward to that. And once we get through Wednesday, we'll pivot pretty quickly and look at where we go next and try to just keep moving those every few months around town to get out there. So that's coming up this week. Tuesday concert is tomorrow, but the one I wanted to note is the subsequent Tuesday, the 25th will be the end of the season. So that's the last concert. It's also that evening a celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Healdsburg Museum. So that will be neat. And if that's not enough to get you out there, it is a Neil Diamond cover band to wrap up the season. So that will be fun. And then lastly, I wanted to put on your radars one more event, which will be not a city event formally, but something we're proud and happy to be able to support in the plaza. Will be a September 11th commemorative event. We heard from members of the public safety community an interest in doing this. And so we'll make that space available and do our best to support a gathering in the plaza September 11th, obviously at 6 p.m., where current and retired public safety personnel will be reading the names of fire, police, and emergency personnel who died in the attacks 25 years ago. This will be the 25th anniversary of those events. And so again, while it's not formally a city event, we did want to be able to support making that space available in the plaza. So we'll have more information to come on that, but I just wanted to give you all a heads up that that's obviously September 11th at 6 p.m. So more to come on that. I think that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions.
I was curious how long the airport repair work is going to take. Rough idea on that?
I'm looking at our public works director, who I hope has an answer.
It is underway, and the whole The whole project is expected to be over by the 27th. The taxiway closures are running off and on. I'm sorry, up until September 4th, and then there's a couple of brief runway closures associated with the work on the taxiway. So everything should be done by September 4th. The closures sound like they're a little off and on between the taxiway and the runway. I think the biggest impact is for people who are in certain hangars. They can't get to their hangars, so they're having their planes in the tie-down area.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And Mayor, I apologize. I gave the wrong time for the community conversations this coming Wednesday. That's 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock on Wednesday. Thank you. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, I just said, on the March Avenue repaving, I guess that's going to be the biggest disruption, if you will, for that. They're going to pull up the old stuff and put down new. What, after that, what's left, I guess is the question.
So the typical process after you pave, the asphalt needs to cure. You can't stripe it for roughly a week after. So they're scheduled to do that pretty quickly, close to that week. They also have to raise all of the the manholes, the meter boxes that were lowered prior to paving. So there is some work that goes on that's still somewhat disruptive, but not the full closures. And after that, it's kind of the cleanup, and it should be over pretty quickly after that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's exciting. Appreciate that. And I just wanted to say thank you for getting the community meetings going so quickly. I'm going to go to that one. I think it'll be fun to hear what people have to say.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
I just wanted to reiterate what we heard a lot from community, especially when we were doing the last set of them years ago, was that people in the community didn't know what was happening inside of City Hall or within the community. So using it as an opportunity to ask folks how they would like to hear from us and what avenues, since I know what a great job we're doing putting out information and I see it in various channels, but clearly there are folks that disagree. And so getting a better understanding of how they'd like to receive information about what we're up to so they feel informed. And if these folks attended, asking them how they heard about it maybe would be a good start. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to public comments on items on the consent calendar and non-agenda items. This time is set aside to receive comments from the public on any item of interest to the public within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council other than scheduled agenda items. Pursuant to the Brown Act, however, the City Council cannot consider any issues or take action on any requests during this comment period. Do we have anybody here tonight who'd like to speak for public comment? Welcome.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Bonnie Sullivan. I live on Presidential Circle. I'd like to bring to your attention the construction that is occurring for the past 2 years on Kennedy Lane and Healdsburg Avenue. There's a fence that came into the road and stopping you from using the crosswalk button. This past summer, I have been riding my bike through this intersection, and I have noticed that it is unsafe for all ages to not have access to the crosswalk button or sidewalk. I feel like as a community, we have been very patient with this construction. This past summer, I have seen little to no work done on this project, but the fence is still blocking the crosswalk button and sidewalk. So can you please ask one of the workers to move the fence so the community will have a safe place to walk? Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Welcome.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gloria Moore, and my husband Jim and I have lived in Healdsburg for 70 years, each of us. Long time. Anyway, we live on Kennedy Lane, 159, and addressing what Bonnie was just mentioning, if you would kindly take a drive down Kennedy Lane at the bridge area, go down and turn around and come back out that way. Try turning left onto the bridge or right or straight onto Front Street. Anyway, there is no sidewalk on the east end of Kennedy Lane, parallel to the river, going to the bridge. Of course, a safety hazard because it's narrow, and narrower yet because of the construction and the intrusion of the fence that is protruding into the lane and shortening one of the lanes. And as she spoke, there is no crosswalk button for us to use to cross over to the Front Street side, south to north. Because the button is covered by the fence in the construction area out of access. And this construction fences at that corner do indeed intrude on the pedestrian and bicycle space. It forces us into active traffic lane, especially the metal juts that support the fence rails, into the street further as trip hazards as you're trying to walk up, or bicycle tire popping if they hit these sharp juts. If you drive it, you'll see what I mean. Especially at that corner, it's already a tight corner for cars to turn right, south over the bridge. And recently there's serious speeders going on across. That's nothing really new, but people are not observing the 15-mile-an-hour zone on the bridge. And I walk frequently with my neighbor friend Gloria right there, and we see the zooming cars approaching the westbound into town, that they're not slowing down. And there is also a lot of red light running, or stop sign running, or stop light running. So my husband and I both separately almost had collisions in the last week, coming over the bridge and trying to turn left onto Kennedy, and somebody's running it, and the vision is impaired with the fences, and it's just tight. So, and again, about the bridge, that it would be nice if
And you
there.
can include your comments in a few moments.
Yes.
Thank you.
15-mile zone enforcement by the police, either with tickets, citations, or a presence of police now and then, and to put up speed bumps, requests for speed bumps on the bridge, or cameras that take a picture of cars that are vehicles violating the traffic speeding zone. So it's all safety related.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Next, please. Welcome.
My name is Matthew Hughes. I'm trying to promote co-ed City League football, Title IX. I'd love to see gratuitized nutrition and real estate also. You guys could put a Rogue River Community College in the city limits between here and the river's end in the ocean. You could put a BYU Northern California. We could go to a national rail and a city trolley. My main issue is the co-ed City League football. I think it ties into county health and gets into some deep politics. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have public comment this evening? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll close public comment for the evening. Thank you very much, and I'll entertain a moment to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Can we have a roll call on that, please?
Councilmember Higley,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Yes.
Mayor Harrod.
Yes. Consent calendar passes, and we're going to move on to item 7, a public hearing, resolution ordering the abatement of weeds with Fire Marshal Division Chief Lance McDonald. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Lance McDonald, Division Chief Fire Marshal at the City of Healdsburg Fire. Wait for my slideshow here. So tonight, we have a couple of items on the agenda. We're going to hold a public hearing and consider the adoption of this resolution, as well as I want to give you a brief just vegetation management update while I have your attention. So tonight's recommended action, as you can see, is to hold a public hearing and adopt a resolution entitled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Healdsburg Ordering the Abatement of Weeds." Next slide, please. So the process, a little context here, the fire department staff inspects all parcels within the city limits annually for weeds, brush, and other fire hazards. And on May 18th of this year, the city council declared listed properties as a public nuisance. And then the property owners receive 30 days notice of any hazard items, and they'll receive additional notices beyond that as well. The staff has and will continue to re-inspect the remaining properties and contact the homeowners the property owners, I should say, to make sure that the weeds are abated. And from a legal perspective, if they do not do that, then the city can hire a contractor and abate the properties and then bill the property owners. So obviously our intent here is continued inspections and education. Our goal is not to abate, but just to educate and have people get this work done. And we'll go to the next slide, please. So this year has not been without its challenges from a weed abatement perspective. The early rains and then sunshine and rains and then sunshine caused multiple growing cycles, specifically with grass. And so many people typically to save money will try to cut 1 or 2 times their grass. And this year there's been 4 or 5 or even more growing cycles. And so it's been challenging. So you may have noticed from the difference from last year. I think I had about 8 people on the list last year, and this year I think it's 22. Although since the list was provided, I think a couple people have already gotten off the list and we're down below 20. But it has been challenging to get all of the properties signed off of the list. I do want to remind the council that the inspection process, it is a snapshot in time. And because of the unique growing cycle this year, there are properties that we inspected early on in this process that frankly need to cut the grass again. But they would have been checked off of the abatement because they did do it at the time we did inspect it. So our goal is to continue to educate and make it people aware that they need to continue to the maintenance of their properties. The last challenge is it's 4,900 plus. I think it's like 4,985 or something parcels throughout the city. We basically predominantly had one inspector take this on. It's a fairly rudimentary inspection. You're doing mostly a drive-by inspection. But the properties that are not abated require multiple re-inspections. We've gone back out 3 or 4 times to knock on doors. We've left notes and so on. And so it is quite intensive. I'll say this was one of our tasks that our newest inspector, John Sullivan, took on. He did a great job. He was out there. You guys might have seen him out in the community a bunch. It's a lot of properties to visit. And so he did a great job. And we'll go to the next page, please. I wanted to just take 1 second to shift gears before we finish the legal process on this and just give you a quick update on some vegetation management work that we've done since I've had a chance to speak with you. July 1st, we had a very successful burn in the Villa Commons, Fish Mountain Villa Commons foothills, as well as the Raja properties. And then we also continue even today. We had crews up in the Healdsburg Ridge open space, continuing to do some vegetation management work. So I wanted to show some pictures and talk about that a little bit. So we can go to the next slide, please. So this is a picture of the burn behind the Villa Commons. And as you can see here, what I just wanted to show you in this picture is the low intensity of the burn. And that's the goal here, is to burn the underbrush but not damage the trees. In years past, when we've had to be a little more aggressive with our burns because we had to get the site to a manageable level, and I would say we're kind of there now. And so this burn went off kind of without a hitch and was really successful and a nice controlled, slow, low intensity burn. Next slide, please. If you look here, this is just an example of how we're kind of building a buffer. If you look in the on the picture on your right, is in the back is the Gauntlet water reservoir. You'll see they're burning up next to the road. That's the Gauntlet Road or the end of Sunnyvale. And again, low intensity burn, but the idea is that buffer as we burn it all the way down towards closer to the homes, building that nice buffer zone in there. Next slide, please. This is a picture I wanted to show you. This picture was taken in December of 25, and in August of 2025, we burnt this area. This is in the Healdsburg Ridge open space, and this area was full of underbrush. If you may have ever hiked up there, you may have seen this area. It's near the Russian River Overlook, but it had piles of dead and down trees there, and we were able to burn and consume that. And just a few months later, it looked like this. So it's both from a fire safety perspective, but it's also ecologically sound practice as we're trying to be good stewards of the land. You can see this is really good for this property. Next slide, please. This is some picture of the CAL FIRE team working on the Healdsburg Ridge open space. This picture on the right is Frog Pond Road, as it's known. If you notice all of the brush piled on the right side there, that's the bay laurel that's fairly invasive in there, and lots of poison oak in there as well. If you've hiked there or run there like my wife does, you'll see that. So what we did here is we cleared about 100 feet up from the roadside, trying to create a shaded fuel break in there and raise the ladder fuel canopy separation. And so the brush was dragged down to the road, piled up, and then chipping has been going on since then, both traditional chipping. And then if we go to the next slide, you'll see what we call a track chipper on the left. And that chipper can kind of mobile around and track in some of the steeper areas. And so we're able to chip quite a few piles of brush, and you can see the good separation again, keeping ladder fuels out of the oaks, keeping a nice healthy shaded oak forest. And then the idea again is that this is early preparation for in hopes for another fall burn. So we can burn up there, have a broadcast burn that'll be successful and safe again in this park. So Mother Nature has to be cooperative. The harvest has to be over. CAL FIRE has to be available. We have to have crews available. So a lot of things have to align for us to do it. But it worked out last year, and so we're prepping for it again. And in the meantime, it looks like this. And with that, I'll go to the last slide. Just reminding you, get up tonight's recommended action. And if you can go to the last slide, if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer those.
Great. Thank you for all your work on that. It's so important to us to be safe and to be prepared this time of year and throughout the year. So thank you very much. Do we have any clarifying questions from the council before we go to public hearing?
Thank you for the presentation. And I apologize if you already answered this, but for the burns that we're doing on the Raja property or Fitch Mountain Villas, which is privately owned land, what is the source of funds that who's doing the work and who pays for the work?
Yeah, actually, thank you very much for asking that question. I meant to mention that all of the work I showed you just now was at no direct cost to the city. We leverage our relationship with CAL FIRE to do the work. So it's staff hours for the burns on burn day, but the rest of the work is predominantly been held out by CAL FIRE. So the state is supporting that.
And is that through a grant? We apply for it, or we just say, hey, we've got some areas that need a treatment. Can you come and do it?
Yeah, it's somewhere in between those two. It's not a grant, but it's a little more formalized than that. We work on them they have certain projects throughout the year that they work on, and they allot certain times in their calendar to work on those projects. Right now, the crews are only working on Mondays in Healdsburg, and I think Tuesdays they work in Guerneville and kind of move around. When the project first started, it was a little more intense. We had them here for like 3 or 4 days a week to get the main part of the work done. And so part of that's building the relationship with the CAL FIRE. We have 2 amazing battalion chiefs, and Paul Fleckenstein and Marshall Tuberville, that help work directly with us. And then part of that is their initiative that was given to them by the governor for creating some of these projects.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, this is like the first year we've had a lot of people not comply, it seems, on that. Is it people who have complied in the past, or it was the weather because it required additional mowing this year? What was the change from the last few years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it is a little bit of that. There are a couple of properties that have certainly complied in the past. Property owner that specifically owns a few properties. I anticipate we're going to get those done. It just hasn't happened yet, and so we're going to continue to work on that. I do think the growing cycle, I should say, did make it challenging for people. We are reminding people to cut their grass, but we also want them to do it safely in the morning when the RH is, the relative humidity is higher and it's safe to do so. So kind of cut your grass, but do it before, say, 10:30, 11 o'clock if you can. So there's less opportunity to do it as the summer fire season is here. But we're going to follow up, and I'm confident we're going to get everybody on this list to follow through.
A simple thing like having a fire extinguisher or hose available while you're mowing can go a long ways.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Good reminder.
Thank you. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, I don't have a question, I have a comment, because I live in the Villa Commons area, and that picture is just right down the street from us. And I just wanted to thank you and say, I mean, it goes really smoothly. It's kind of an amazing thing. The setup, all the trucks come out and the hoses, and, the preparation is probably more almost than anything else, right? And you feel safe and secure. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. The preparation is where all the work is. Burn day is kind of the fun day. goes as planned, obviously. The Fitch Mountain Villa Commons provided lunch for all of the crews. It was like 55 different firefighters on scene that day. So that was a really nice, they supported the burn, and we really appreciated that.
Yes. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for public comment. The public hearing is now open. If you have something to say on this item, please come forward now. Do we have anybody here who'd like to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Do we have any other comments or questions at this time?
I'd like to adopt a resolution ordering the abatement of weeds.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Higley,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Yes.
Mayor Herod.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to item 8A, when the time comes, pilot program update and contract amendment with Recreation Supervisor on a grant. Welcome on.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Anna Grant, your active adult and senior services supervisor. Thank you for being here. It is a pleasure as always. And to my right is our compassion coordinator, Tay Levine. First, just the recommended action. There's been a slight change in today's presentation. We had planned on bringing you forward a budget amendment. We'd like to do that at another time. And today, focus specifically on this pilot program update and what we've learned thus far, if that's agreeable with the council.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you. Then, in that case, I'll take the next slide. I wanted to open with just a quick snapshot of what we are at the Senior Center. We are a pretty important part of our community. It's a fun, welcoming space if you've stepped in before. We offer classes. We have all types of events and many, many celebrations that we do at the Senior Center. It's been quite the positive place to be. But it's also a space that our community comes seeking information. And they're looking for information specifically on age-related questions. Some of these questions are profound. They're challenging, and they're end-of-life questions that have future care decisions. Back in 2024, Taya here and I sat down and she said, "Did you know something? I'm a death doula. What do you think of that?" And I said, "That is absolutely amazing. We get people that come into the Senior Center often with questions. I'd like to know more. And she said, "Let's think about bringing something forward to our community." And of course, I said yes. So, next slide. In the summer of 2024, we had this conversation. It grew and continued, just talking about bringing forward this end-of-life planning and support resource to our community. Flash forward to February, our Senior Citizens Advisory Commission adopted a Compassionate Communities pilot program as one of their goals for the fiscal year. Then in April, you members of the council had a goal planning session. And in June, City Council, thank you very much for adapting the compassionate communities as a goal for your fiscal year. Next slide. So we then formed with our Senior Citizens Advisory Commission, a Compassionate Communities Ad Hoc Committee that consisted of both staff, our Compassion Coordinator, Ms. Tay Levine, and our Senior Citizens Advisory Commissioners, Brown and Erickson. And we immediately launched into a discovery and development process about validating our community's needs, looking at whether sources and materials were around, doing our Latino community outreach, and looking into funding resources. Next slide. During that process, what we unveiled, if you can recall from when we last met with you in December, what came out of that was this three-pillar concept of empowering choices, navigating life's end-of-life's journey, and then the healing process, all centered around peace of mind. Next slide. Then in November of 2025, we had this fantastic concept. We brought it forward to our commission. They received the draft of this and they endorsed the launch of our pilot program. And in December, you, the council, then gave us permission to go ahead and launch. It was a very exciting day for all of us. I'll take the next slide. We immediately, again, continued our working on this in February and April. We started building in I want to specifically focus on our compassion language and messaging that we started to deliver to get our community members, our seniors, really focusing on what we were doing. And with that, the next slide, we were able to develop and come forward with a program name, When the Time Comes. So materials such as what you see in front of you, a trifold brochure, we developed business cards, a logo, an emblem, whenthetimecomes.org. And we started to talk about it in our Senior Center newsletter, and even the local paper picked up a story in January in the local Tribune. And that is where I'm going to actually hand it over to Taya to talk about what happened next.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and City staff. It's a pleasure to be here to tell you a bit about our early experience with the program implementation. As Anna said, we prepared in the early part of this year to introduce the program to community and welcome their involvement. And we did that with an open house on April 27th. That gathering was intended to both share information with community about what was available and what they could expect in participation in the program, but also to invite their contribution to the prioritization or the sequencing of the different kinds of learning sessions that we were prepared to offer. And that input proved valuable in programming the work that has ensued ever since. We weren't quite sure what to expect with that day, but as these images show you, over 100 people showed up. And I think in general, what we've been experiencing with the program, beginning with that moment, was a bit of a myth busting about people not wanting to talk about this, because in fact, people are deeply grateful for the opportunity to talk about it. And so what we've been experiencing since this moment is a monthly cadence of program offering. It's kind of the core of the What the Time Comes program is being seen as and experienced as at this time. Thank you very much, Raina. The month involves what I like to talk about as a feed your head and speak from the heart kind of cycle of experience. We conduct what we call a Death Curious Gathering. It's a place on the second Monday of every month in the afternoon where experts and practitioners in the field of death care come and share information with our community so people can be better equipped to interact with systems and programs and services when the need comes, when the time comes. And we're doing that in a way that is explicitly mitigating a sales pitch. We're bringing in people who are there to really inform and help people be as grounded as they can be with information to support themselves and make decisions on their own behalf. The Speak from the Heart portion of the monthly cadence is a community conversation circle, and they happen on the third Thursday of every month. This month, it's this week on Thursday afternoon. We spend an hour and a half together just sharing what's on people's hearts and minds related to thinking about and experiencing death and dying. And I'll tell you that every workshop so far, we started out with an assumption we might have 24 people and created a sign-up sheet based on that, and every program has had 40 to 45. And the Dying to Talk About It circles has a pretty steady, it's a drop-in thing, but there's been about 15 to 20 people every time we've offered that as well. We just completed our first grief and bereavement program. It's an 8-week cohort. It's a small group. It's an intimate process of 8 weeks for people who are still stuck, if you will, with grief, and giving them a way to move through and forward and live with loss. The program's conducted by a woman who lives on Rockpile. Her name is Betty Durso. She's a lovely human being who's donating her time, as everyone is, to this program. And I discovered her because she was conducting this program at the Cloverdale Senior Center, and our Healdsburgers were going there. That's how I found out about it, from a friend who took part in the program, and she was willing to do it here for us, and we're deeply grateful. We're going to run that program again beginning in the latter part of October into early December. There'll be another opportunity. Hoping to create grief groups going forward. We're just not at that place yet with people, availability, and resources. And then the last component of the program is the availability to come and get help and support with individual needs. We created a space in the senior center that we're calling the Compassion Corner. It was a little space right next to Anna's office, and no pun intended, it was a dead space. There was like janky furniture and people might sit there to read a paper or something. It was used, but it didn't have a purpose. And with a very little bit of just kind of softening it up, it's become a place where people can come to a lending library to get forms, information, and then I have office hours. About 24 people have come forward since we began, with everything from I'd like to get a burial plot next to my husband at the military cemetery in Southern California, or I live in a Section 8 apartment and I want to know what's going to happen to my body when I don't have any more money. Or my husband died on Wednesday and I need help. Or 2 brothers who are caring for their parents and don't know what they need to know and wanted to be on good footing. I want to clone those guys. They were like incredible young men to work with. So the Compassion Corner, again, is another place where people can avail themselves of some resources and support. That's sort of the monthly cadence of the program right now. In terms of where we're headed next, I mean, we've only been running since April, and we're enjoying, I would say that the gratitude and the relief that people express that this exists is gratifying and also validating that the need is there and that this way of meeting it is meaningful to people. Every time they tell me that, I tell them, thank the city. Make sure you thank the city for saying yes to this. So where we're going is we have a continued program cadence throughout the end of the year. Just to be illustrative, the September workshop is going to give people a chance to understand what palliative care and hospice care are all about, with a retired hospice director and a palliative care nurse available to answer questions. In October, we're doing a program on the body's journey so people can appreciate that here in California, there are many, many options for what can happen with your body when you're no longer alive, and want people to be aware of the choices available to them for that. In November, we're going to do a session on having the conversation, which is going to, we hope, support the ability of adult children and their parents and vice versa to talk about what needs to be talked about right before the holidays. It might be a really juicy Thanksgiving dinner conversation. We will continue with our monthly discussion series. We've begun our collaboration through Corazon, programming the resources that we were fortunate to receive from the Providence Hospice Foundation this year to support Latino community capacity building for grief and bereavement work. You may remember that our intention was to ensure we're doing culturally relevant programming. We've been really fortunate to secure with the International End-of-Life Doula Association, which is one of the larger bodies that attends to the skill development of end-of-life doulas. They're just beginning their Spanish language training and their culturally relevant programming, and we're going to be their pilot community. That program is slated to launch in February of next year. So we're super excited about the work getting going in that trajectory as well. And I'll let you know just anecdotally that other communities in the county have reached out and asked about what we're doing and want to understand how they might emulate this scope of program. And that interest is not insignificant, and there's enough of them, and I think we might be bringing everybody together to take a look at how do we assure equity of access and consistency in this across all of our communities so that there's sort of a reliable resource countywide, and there's interest and support from the county. We're working with the Office on Aging on that too. So we are relentlessly pursuing additional grant funding for this program. As you know, everything we've done up until this date has been supported by funds we've been able to secure from the contribution contributions of others. There is a donate button on the When the Time Comes org website that's available for the community to make contributions to the program, because we always sort of envision this being a little bit like the gazebo project or the open space, where the city is devoting resources, but the community is meeting them too with their own interest and commitment. Next slide. Okay. So that's an update from us, and I'll welcome whatever questions you might like to have answered. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Before we go to clarifying questions and public comment, I'd like to just get an understanding of the budget piece, the timeline on that, and where you're at, so we have an idea of what's happening there, please.
So we recently received a $10,000 in funding from Healdsburg Forever, and as well as Taya had mentioned, the $60,000 from the Providence Hospice Foundation, and the $60,000 is earmarked for Latino grief and bereavement outreach. We're still really going through that grant funding that we received. We're not quite ready to give you a full budget report. We'd love to bring that forward to you at a future meeting if we can. And I think
Are you thinking sometime in the fall, or?
yeah, and I know that we're also looking, at the community services budget as a whole in general, so we'd be happy to be bringing that forward to you in the next few months.
Okay. Is there anything more that should be added to that from staff? It's part of the agenda, so I just want to make sure we have some completion on this for the time being. But
No, I would concur with that. We don't have a precise time limit at this point. We wanted to continue with the general program update tonight since we agendized that. But I would concur that we, in the next few months, expect to be back.
okay, thank you. So I really appreciate the update. I've been dying to get some of the detail on how the program is evolving, and it's really inspiring, and you're doing a lot of great work. So I was really happy to hear that. I'd like to see if anybody else had any questions about the presentation. No. Okay, let's go ahead and open it up for public comment then. If there's anybody who'd like to come forward and speak on this item, now's the time. Okay, not seeing anybody who wants to come forward, we'll bring it back to council and see if there's any other comments. Go ahead, Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you for the presentation, and it's really great to see kind of the trajectory that this program has had in the time from which you started talking to us about it, and now that it's up and running, and those photos really speak volumes. And I know some of my colleagues were there in the photos and at the launch, and I've just heard anecdotally through folks in the community what a great resource this has been. And clearly there's high demand, as evidenced by the number of people who are showing up and participating. And so it's great that we're offering this service. I'd be curious, and don't feel like you have to respond on the spot, but curious how many of the people that are attending are Healdsburg residents versus people who heard about it, word of mouth through other places. I know we have a lot of folks, because we have such stellar active adult services in Healdsburg. A lot of, when I'm going for the bistro program, I meet people from Cloverdale and Windsor and others who are sitting there, saying, you guys really are the best in town, but obviously our seniors go up to Cloverdale as well. So just curious, if you know the demographics of where people are coming from or how they heard about it. And then really just excited to see kind of what that future programming looks like, and how the trajectory goes over time. I know you mentioned the November series right in advance of Thanksgiving, and like how to have the conversation. And I was curious if that's like inspired by the Death Over Dinner conversation series, and if that's something that you're going to be giving people the tools of like how to have those sensitive conversations with family or others.
Yeah. So thanks for asking on both fronts. We have been gathering information with the registration for every workshop where people are, their addresses, so we could begin to track that because we were curious ourselves. And what I don't have data for you, but we can report on that the next time we come with some numbers and stuff. We have not turned anyone away based on where they're from. And there are a couple of people who've come from Santa Rosa. A couple of people have come from Sebastopol. The interesting thing, when I looked at the rosters and ran them through a wonderful little AI agents processing, because I was curious about, are we seeing the same 45 people? Is this like people are going through the whole thing or what? And to my surprise, because I feel like I see the same faces a lot, There wasn't as the ratio of people taking everything wasn't quite what I thought it was. I don't know the answer to how they're finding out, and we need to begin asking that. And so that's a helpful prompt on that front. Thank you very much. I hadn't considered the death over dinner construct. I was thinking more in the lane of conversation project as the way to resource, but the suggestion around death over dinner and its construct would be really worthy of looking at and seeing how people might find that an easy entry point. So thanks for mentioning it. I'll go take a look at it.
Great, thank you. And I think just as we are such generalists, like we look at so many different things across a variety of different issues, whether it's, potholes, sidewalk access, or how to keep the lights on literally in the city. A lot of what we hear is as the number of seniors and the aging adults population in our community, and just knowing the demographics across this community, and with the addition of, intentionally, right, we're building senior housing in the community, Enzo Village. Otherwise, there are a lot of seniors in this community. And so just, knowing that we have resources for folks who are starting to think about when the time comes, I think is a great thing that we're offering. So thank you for what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to add my thanks, and the fact that there is such interest in this community is not surprising, but it's really great that need can be met, and that the city is doing this. It feels unique to Healdsburg right now, but just thank you for coming up with the idea and implementing it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate kind of getting an update. And I'm glad that this is coming back. I had a couple questions around the budget that when it does come back, maybe you can incorporate a little bit of some of the questions that I had. First, what's the estimated annual cost to continue operating the program? So like you mentioned, we're going to be looking at community services. We've received emails about the meals at the senior center. So that we've got to look at everything. And I want to make sure we have accurate information, and the staff report specifically excluded staff time. I don't know if that's a lot of time or not, but I know there's other budget items where staff time is allocated half here and how many hours here and all that. So it'd be great to have that included. And I'm assuming some of these things look like they were one-time expenses, like the flyers, the software, some of that, which is already paid for. And the flyers are, once they're out, some of this, maybe there's minor updates, but so I'd like a little segregation between what are one-time expenses to get this program up and running and the expenses associated with the ongoing costs of the program. Let's see. And then for the Providence Hospice Foundation, the $60,000 for multicultural grief and bereavement capacity building efforts. So again, it sounds like it's building the capacity for phase one, and then what's after, like, does that easily fold into the program we already have, or is it something additional that we need to look at? Let's see. And along with that, I was curious if there's specific issues that Providence was looking for the city to take on, or are they looking for a one-time event? And if it is an ongoing city program, what's the expectation on funding the ongoing program? Is there continued funding? Obviously, if 60 grand is a lot of its startup, maybe it's an ongoing lesser amount that helps. And then the final one that might be a little bit more uncomfortable, but you kind of mentioned there's a link on the website. I'd be curious if there's an opportunity to recover some of the costs through the program for non-income qualified clients. So we're looking at Foley Pavilion for different types of events, some cost recovery. I'd be curious if there's some model that could be explored and taken into account. Other than that, I think you're providing great information to people that really don't know where to look. So thank you.
Vice Mayor Edwards.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you because this program is just, sometimes we think a program's needed, and it's really nice to when it comes forward that it shows that it really was needed. And I think the important part of it is that it makes a segment of our community who might felt uncomfortable, might not felt they had the needs to get this information, to have that available at the senior center. I mean, we are truly reaching out to a wide range of our residents, particularly when you may not think that Healdsburg would have a need for this, but it shows when you dig down, we are a wide community. We are not just top heavy, bottom heavy. This is really addressing our community across financial needs. And so I really wanted to thank you for this program. And the proof is in the turnout. I mean, that really is showing that this is a needed program, and it's nice that we can lead other communities in showing what really is helpful, because we're all getting older. And, you don't get any younger, and they don't prepare you for this. As my dad used to say, aging is not for the young. It takes a little work to get here, and the more information you have, the easier it is. And in talking with people, the comfort they feel when they can check this off. I mean, when this is done, they know they're not going to be a burden to their family, to their kids. They've thought about it. And so I just wanted to say thank you for this program.
Thank you. And I just want to mention that, paying attention to what's happening on state and county level in terms of attention to mental health is usually like the first thing to go or to be shelved or put off. And so if we as a community have an opportunity to fill in a gap here or there in that field, I think we're really lucky to be able to take that. And so it's really a testament to your vision and your ingenuity and your, openness to what people need that it's given rise to this program. And so I'm really grateful that it's happening. And I think it kind of speaks for itself, the value it has to our community. So I don't want to repeat what others have said here, but thank you. And we look forward to learning more about the budget aspect and seeing how we can support you. And let me see, is there anybody else that has any other comments? Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on now to item 8B, which is the e-bike voucher. And we have Utility Conservation Analyst Tara Sampson with us, but I'm going to go ahead and let Vice Mayor Edwards start off the conversation since he asked the council to bring it forward.
Yeah, this has been, in looking at the program over the years, it's been kind of an underfunded program. And I like to think of things as what can we do to improve a program, and also how is this program used? And looking at the $1,000 possible buy-in, that's a lot to ask for someone in the 80% AMI to come up with out of pocket. And so I was thinking and talking with staff and so forth that it would be good if we could turn this into a voucher program, see if we can extend this, since we do have this money available from the state and from our carbon credits, that this would be a helpful way to utilize this program. Instead of just sitting there collecting dust, we can actually get people on bicycles, going to work, going to school, getting around town, and get to a segment of our community we might not have approached before in some of these. I know we've done the panel rebate, we've done the car rebate, but we really haven't addressed those people who are at the bottom end who are most affected by climate change. This gives them an opportunity to actually do something about it. So that's kind of the background of why I brought this forward.
Okay, so thank you for that. I guess we can start off with any questions we have from the council on this?
I wanted to add, this is not a replacement program. It's not replacing the rebate program, so that somebody can still go through if they want to shop outside of the parameters of what we're presenting or coming up with. They still have that available. This is just an additional method to get these e-bikes on the road and reduce the carbon footprint.
Okay, well, I have a question then. Basically, what sort of changes are possible or needed at this point with the existing program and what could be done to strengthen it? So let's start off with that question.
Sure. So I think a good place to start is kind of a general overview of what the current process looks like with a post-purchase rebate that we are currently administering, and then what a potential voucher process could look like. So maybe I'll go through both of those briefly. So the current process, generally, a Healdsburg resident learns about the e-bike rebate. The resident makes their e-bike purchase. They submit their rebate application and the receipt to the city. City staff reviews the application and their documentation, and then we mail out a rebate check to that resident. So that's kind of the current process.
Sorry, really quick on that current process, how long does it usually take for us to mail the check out and for them to receive it and cash it? Like how long are they kind of holding that financial impact?
Sure. So the rebate application does state 6 to 10 weeks to give us plenty of time and not be, late on customers that were expecting it sooner. So the rebate application does say 6 to 10 weeks. The e-bike rebate is typically one of our easier, simpler rebates to review. So as long as we've been provided with the documentation, the only things required for this one are the receipt, and we do need W-9 forms. Once we've been provided with those, it's a very quick review. We get it to finance. Finance does typically take about 2 weeks. I'd say more likely is about 4 total. But again, the rebate application does state 6 to 10. So this one does depend on getting that documentation from the customers. Again, sometimes that might sound simple. There's certain customers where I've been requesting the receipt for a while now, and so that can also sometimes depend on the customer, not on the city staff review. But I'd go over the what I kind of see for the potential voucher option process. I would break into 2 distinct sections. There would be the development and setup process, and then the ongoing implementation. So as far as development and setup for staff, that would entail researching of existing programs, conversations to really understand the back end administration of those example programs, initial discussions and coordination of city staff with local businesses, the city's finance team, and the contracts team, and really in those discussions, really talking through the considerations of the pre-approval process, the voucher setup, the bike shop's actual abilities to split bills, the advertising to be done by the bike shops, the pre-approved e-bike list of models, and then exactly what does that reimbursement process. So those are just some outlines of considerations that we would need to talk amongst city staff and the potential bike shops with, and then get those agreements in place, set up that new process, and create the new rebate materials. So that's kind of what I would envision as far as the development and initial setup. And then for the ongoing implementation of issuing this potential voucher option, it would be that a Healdsburg resident learns of the e-bike rebate. They submit some sort of pre-application form. City staff lets them know that they've been confirmed for eligibility and gets them that voucher, whether it's physical or emailed or a unique code, right? All considerations that city staff and the bike shops could discuss. And then staff would also inform the bike shops that there's a recently approved one, be prepared that someone might come in looking to use a voucher and purchase a bike. The bike shop would split the bill or deduct that rebate amount up front, and then the bike shop would send an invoice or receipt to the city of Healdsburg requesting their reimbursement because they've already deducted that amount from the bike sale. Healdsburg would review that and then process the rebate, and additionally do some spot checks and verification that the vouchers really are going to the intended residents and for approved e-bike models, and then talk with the bike shop about if that is not happening and that we wouldn't reimburse if that's found to be occurring. But otherwise get those invoices in from the bike shop and reimburse them, since they would have already provided this upfront rebate to eligible approved customers for pre-approved bike models.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead.
Are we just talking about customers who are income qualified care customers, or are we talking about all residents? I guess I'm asking Councilman or Vice Mayor Edwards because you were.
Yeah, I'm
fielding-
thinking care customers, particularly, and I liked your question about the amount of time it takes is 4 weeks, because that could catch somebody on a credit card cycle. If they were to use a credit card, they would then incur interest if it wasn't in time, and it kind of takes the stress off. People calling the city, I could see going, when is that coming, kind of panicking and so forth. So no, it would be the same qualifications of the current rebate program, just making this a voucher option.
And in case folks, because it was kind of hard to find in the staff report, but thank you for including it in the earlier item from the consent calendar. There have been 131 e-bike rebates issued since the beginning of the program in 2020, but only 12 of those 131 were for care customers. And then in the last year, when we've made some changes to it, we've had how many in the last year? 2025, there were 13 e-bikes rebate issued. 4 of those were for care customers. So certainly, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add, so we did not make the updates until February of 2026. So the 2025 was still with the older program of $700 for care customers. I do have, if you'd like me to say them, I do have some 2026 numbers so far.
Great, that'd be helpful.
Okay, great.
Because we went from $700 to $1,000. So in 2026, is that right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
for a rebate.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So in February, City Council authorized $700 to $1,000 for care customers, and then also going from an allotment of 1 e-bike rebate for all households to still keeping that 1 allotment for non-income qualified households, but the low-income care households can get 2 e-bike rebates now. So those were the 2 changes made in February 2026. And so far in 2026, we have issued 19 e-bike rebates, and 6 of the 19 were for care customers. So Councilmember Kelly has those stats correct for 2020 to 2025. And then in 2026, so far, we are at more like 32% of the participation has been care.
Great, thank you.
And so, we are offering rebates to non-care customers, but you're saying the voucher program would apply just to care customers? Okay. All right, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple questions. How much does an e-bike cost?
Sure. So it varies based on the one that you are selecting, but the average cost so far this year has been about $2,000. I do actually have that. Let me pull it up. The average cost so far this year has been $2,100 approximately for the e-bikes, and the care. But when you look at just those 6 care customers so far in 2026. The average was $1,600.
And so are there specific types that we will reimburse for? Because I'm assuming that maybe the bike shops in Healdsburg costs might be a little bit more than where you might be able to get it somewhere else, like at Walmart or whatever. And we're going to be forcing them to buy bikes. They could buy them somewhere else, but to get the, I don't know, to get a voucher, they'd have to buy it in Healdsburg.
Yes, if City Council were to direct staff to move forward with a voucher, I believe we would only be looking at sales in Healdsburg. So that would be local Healdsburg options for getting that upfront rebate. But then I believe what Vice Mayor Edwards is suggesting is that the existing rebate still exists. So customers could choose to buy a bike elsewhere and get the post-purchase e-bike rebate.
So I guess my question then is this a real problem? Have we heard about it? Do we know about it? Are we assuming something here that people can't? If you're going to look at buy an e-bike and you can get $1,000 rebate, but I can't afford to pay $2,000 and get $1,000 back, are we making that assumption?
I think we were just heard that the people who are using the care program are buying a much lower price bike as the average of $1,600 as opposed to the average of $2,000 for non-care customers.
So, okay, that makes sense. But I guess I'm just still not sure that is the reason care customers aren't buying e-bikes is because they can't afford the $1,000 up front.
I'm thinking and looking, one of the things when we talked about equity is when we were talking, even being on council, if we need to go somewhere, you have to have a credit card. You have to put it on your credit card and get reimbursed. And a lot of people aren't able to use that credit card. And then if you use the credit card, you've got a 4-week window that if you want to pay that off, you might not get that rebate check in time. So you're going to incur interest charges. This is just trying to think of people who live paycheck to paycheck, and to come up with the money to set aside, to save it on top of all the things that are going on. This could really help them get around, be mobile, and really participate in climate reduction.
I think the spirit of it is certainly important, but I also am concerned from the description of what it would take to administer such a program, that the cost of the city could be significantly higher than issuing a rebate check. So I would be concerned about that whole process too in this discussion.
I definitely think we should tackle that. I do want to just add to what Councilmember Edwards says, is that for a very long time, you had a gulf between folks who were walking or taking public transportation or had a car, and there was nothing in between except the bicycle, and that's not always going to be the right choice for a lot of people. And so the advent of e-bikes that are relatively affordable, will also get a lot of miles and have are much better quality than they were a short while ago, is really filling a gap, and that's why we're seeing so many more of them. I mean, some people just like it for fun, but I think for a lot of people, it's a growing necessity. And so that's why I think should be interest in this program. Oh, go ahead.
Quick question. What's the percentage of our customers, the utility customers, that are on the CARE program?
It's approximately 11% of the electric customers receive the electric bill discount.
Okay, and year to date, 32% of the bikes that have been sold.
Yes.
CARE customers.
6 of 19.
Okay, it's percentage wise, it looks impressive, but when you're actually talking about bikes, it's 6 bikes. Question I had was, as I was thinking about this, is, this also benefits our local bike shops. So I'm curious how much of this we could put on them to kind of pre-qualify their customers who are going to buy a bike as part of their customer service element to gather the package. I'm not quite sure, maybe you covered it, but what all is included in that application? I'm assuming it's public information, or, they're having to give tax information, but is there some of it that we can put on the retailers to help? Here's the documentation you'll need. Take this over to City Hall. Healdsburg's small. Bring it over, give it to this person. And then there's something that goes back to, the bike shop that can say, yep, they're qualified for $1,000. They're all good to go. So we kind of put some of that gathering information, or, you said you're waiting for receipts, kind of put that on the bike shop.
Yeah, so I think in the voucher scenario, I would not see the receipts necessarily being the holdup. I would be hesitant to put the qualification on the bike shops, because myself and the administrative technician that supports some of the rebate programs, we are checking if someone is an active CARE customer. That is private, confidential information. And then we're also checking if they've already received a rebate, and if so, how many. Again, private, confidential information. So if that were to be something that the bike shop was collecting, they would need to actually collect like tax forms from the past year and do that qualification, which is a lot to ask of them.
Well, yeah, and we wouldn't want to do that. So I appreciate the clarification. I'm just trying to figure out how we can streamline this to Councilmember Mitchell's point. How can we make this easier, streamlined, not just for the customer, but for staff with the amount of time doing this? Is it possible to shorten the time, provided that, we can't do anything if somebody's not sending in a receipt? I work at a bank. I deal with the same thing with people who are waiting for documents. I can't move forward until I have everything. So I get that, but is there like a shorter time frame that staff could commit to in terms of turnaround,
And
provided we have a complete package?
I don't know that I think this is a good question. I'm not sure if you're prepared to give a really complete answer to that right now. And I think that would be okay if you didn't, because what I'm starting to imagine is that, obviously this would have to come back to us and we'd have to have some more detail on some of these components in terms of staff time, expense, and so on. Is that right?
Yes, I agree. If this is something that council would like staff to work on, staff would come back with what is that proposed most efficient process. But given the current post-purchase, it can't get much shorter than 4 weeks, just given the administrative technician receiving it, passing it on to me reviewing it, and then our city finance department having like a minimum 2 weeks to get the rebate check actually created and out in the mail.
So,
but I don't think that the concerns are about the post-purchase rebate. It's the consideration of if the city council would like staff to be developing a upfront voucher.
correct. Thank you. Okay. Vice Mayor Edwards, and then we'll go to public comment after that.
I just want to clarify that this is not an unlimited pool of money. It's only working with the current money that we have available for this program, is what I'm suggesting. So it's not an ongoing. So if you were interested in it, you would have to apply. And then once we hit that amount, we have a certain amount that we can do per year as far as rebates.
The current budget accounts for 20,000 per year of low-income e-bike rebates issued. If we were hitting that, it would be city council could come back to city council to authorize additional budget.
I think we've got the budget set on it and we should operate within that operating budget. I'm just trying to make it easier to reach that.
All right, I'd like to open it up to public comment now. Is there anybody here who'd like to come forward and speak on this item? Welcome.
Hi there. Good afternoon. Yeah, when it definitely comes to equity, it's very important to not just raise, for example, an eBay, but also to reduce barriers to entry so everyone has a better chance of participating. I definitely enjoy the idea of making this rebate more upfront for folks that don't have to burn that costs. I also, whichever way is decided how it's distributed, this could also be seen as a way to improve trust within the city. And what I mean by that is, I think about a scenario of someone who wouldn't qualify for the program or just getting an e-bike, expecting a rebate, and then not having all the documentation first. When they submit all their forms and they don't quite do it right, it takes just one bad experience the first time they try doing it, that when they don't get the rebate or they do something wrong, or they just forget the small detail, it just burns them off and thinks, oh, they're just lying about this whole entire thing. I think changing the model, reducing the barriers for this one group of people can benefit a whole much more if we make it more that way across the board, so that people don't go off and buy something expecting this in the future when it may not actually be guaranteed, but getting a confirmation from the city themselves saying, hey, yeah, you definitely can do this. You can go ahead and move forward and buy that. Would make people think, okay, cool, I got the support from the city. I got this thing already secured. I don't have to second guess about what's going to happen in the future.
Thank you. Next, please. Welcome.
Kathy Waterbury here. I have actually a couple of questions. Would this work where somebody's going to buy a good used condition e-bike? It would cost much less than a brand new one. And will, like you have adult e-trikes, would that also qualify? It might be for people who can't ride a two-wheeler no matter what, but they need a three-wheeler. And I know we only have one bike shop in town that sells e-bikes. The other ones just rent them. And what if there's to buy the bike off of Amazon or somewhere else where you cannot get it anywhere but maybe off of a website? Would that be the rebate? Can they get a rebate? And, that's just my questions, other than a certain type. And I like to see something qualify. If it's going to be for teenagers or kids, that they would have to take a course, maybe through the police department, the proper way to use that bike. And, like, yes, you You're permitted to ride this bike because you know the rules, not to speed down the sidewalk, not to speed down the path, and follow the rules. Because that's the issues a lot of people are having with the teenagers on those e-bikes, and some adults. But anyway, I'd like to see expand to those with e-trikes, or if somebody wants to turn their bike into an electric bike, which can be done, it's going to be a rebate to upgrade the bike that they have. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to come forward on this item? Okay, we'll close public comment. There was some comment in the last public comment there, but there's also I thought some good questions about a vehicle that's not just a two-wheeler. Used e-bikes, are those typically covered? And Ms. Waterbury mentioned that one place just rents them, but I believe they sell them also. Can you clarify that as well?
Yeah, so I'll go through some of those questions. The used is fine for the rebate. So as long as the e-bike itself has not been rebated before and the person purchasing the e-bike has not already reached their allotment of the number of rebates they can receive, the used versus new is totally fine.
As long as they buy it through the store, though, right? They couldn't buy it from their neighbor or whatever.
We have had folks buy it from an individual. I'd say they just need good documentation that it was actually purchased and where it came from so that we can determine that it was not already previously rebated. But it could be from used or new to be eligible for the bike. And I would say there's the bike shop, and then there are some bike tour companies. Occasionally, either of those, like bike tour companies or bike shops that have rentals, will sell off their previous year's models for really good discounts. So those would be eligible for the rebate as well. And again, either the bike shop or bike touring companies will do that. The e-trikes will count for the e-bike rebate. The state's definition doesn't specify that it has to be two wheels. So an e-trike can qualify. I would encourage anyone looking into those to really look at the safety reviews. Sometimes depending on where the motor is placed, it can be more prone to tipping. That's kind of my limited knowledge of the e-trikes. I would just encourage folks to look at the safety reviews, but in terms of the issuing the rebate, an e-trike could qualify. And then online, I also heard a question about online rebates. So as it stands right now, a care customer could receive a $1,000 rebate regardless of purchase location. So that could be an online purchase. If a non-income qualified customer, so any other resident in Healdsburg, purchases an online e-bike, that would be a $300 rebate. And otherwise, the non-income qualified residents in Healdsburg that purchase a e-bike locally can get a $400 rebate. And then conversion kit, that is on the rebate application or the rebate offering. It's $50. To my knowledge, no one has used that. I think that was the main questions, but please let me know if I missed one.
Go ahead and ask the question.
Kathy Waterbury had also asked if youth 18 and under qualify for the rebate currently, and would they qualify for the voucher?
Sure. I am currently going by that amount per household. So for a non-income qualified household, they could get 1 e-bike rebate. For a care low-income household, they could get 2 e-bike rebates for their household. I am not necessarily checking up on who is the user of that e-bike. I would say, though, if they are purchasing what is called a Class 3 e-bike, there are age limitations for being able to legally ride that.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I really like the idea of having a voucher program because I think right now we're asking individuals to take the risk, to assume a risk that they're making a large purchase with the hope that they're going to qualify for this rebate. And I think this doesn't shift the risk to the city. What it does is that it creates a pre-purchase assurance that the purchase is going to be qualified for this program. And so the individual can basically pre-qualify. We're working in partnership with a local business, and the local business is going to have to help administer the program with us by kind of taking some of that documentation and the paperwork shuffle that is happening between currently the buyer and city staff, and the bike shop is, because we'd be paying the bike shop or we'd be paying the bike rental company directly. Is that right, Tara? The funds would be flowing from the city to the store, as opposed to from the city to the buyer, the purchaser individual, after they've already bought it.
Correct.
So I imagine, there's a financial incentive for the business because they're going to be hopefully selling more bikes because of this program. And so they'd be incentivized to be, it'd be hopefully easier to administer the program because you're not dealing with individuals and their limitations around technology or scanning receipts or, showing up to City Hall on their work day when we close and they're still working or whatever it might be. So I think it could help make the program move smoother. So I like the idea of having the vouchers available and to see if it helps us kind of expend these funds. Remind us, there is specific pots of money in this program that are only for the low income individuals. Is that the same thing with the EVs? This is the same thing for that program, or this is different?
This is also using the low carbon fuel standards funds to issue the equity e-bike rebates. So the low income e-bike rebates, we are using low carbon fuel standards. The non-income qualified e-bike rebates, we are using best funds.
Got it. So we have a pool of funds that we are expending that are limited to low income individuals. So, and we haven't been able to max out or cap, hit the threshold of the expending all of the funds. Is that correct?
Sure. I would say it's only been in recent years that we have started trying to specifically use those low carbon fuel standards funds.
Are the low carbon fuel standards funds that are for the low income customers or the care customers, can we utilize any of those funds to offset the staff cost for administering the program?
The low carbon fuel standards program has extremely strict admin requirements, but yes, we can claim staff time as part of the program costs.
So if we're creating a voucher program and the vouchers, this is right, if we do this and if this is what council wants to do, if we have a voucher program that is only for care customers, meaning it's this specific pot of money, for what you're saying is only for the low-income customers, that the staff time to create that program, set it up and administer it potentially could come from that fund source and not general fund monies or otherwise. Is that right?
Yes, I'd say the funds can come from low carbon fuel standards. If I could offer some comments after this, though, about the staff capacity, not necessarily the funds related to that.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. And there's two components. One is how much time and staff, yourself and others, we need to prepare this as an item to come back to council, and then how much would be required if we, hit go on a program like this. Of course, that would be something we would debate when it came back. But that first part is of interest to us, I think, to know, what I know you have a lot on your plate. So I want you to address that and be honest with us about when you could put this together without compromising the rest of the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. David has something. Dad.
I appreciate the thought process. However, if we have these funds, I want to get them into bikes. I feel like, I want to understand the staff costs, but that's part of, the cost that we've, collectively as a council under the climate mobilization strategy agreed, okay, there are going to be some of these costs, but when we have specific costs that we're trying to push out to get people to use e-bikes or upgrade their panels, I don't want to siphon away funds from that, because to me, that's more important to have that bike in somebody's hands, the upgrade the panels and all the other things that we're doing, that has a longer term impact than trying to carve out some funds from that could be going toward more of those tangible assets in the community.
It's a good point, but we would work through that once we had everything out in front of us, when it came back, I think, right?
Sure. So yes, I would love to address the staff capacity. One clarification before I jump into that. If someone is really concerned about the guarantee of getting the post-purchase rebate, there are often times where I will talk with people before and sort of give them a pre-approval. So if that is of concern to someone of like, I can only buy this e-bike if I'm going to get the e-bike rebate, I will check that they're going to qualify and then even have them send me like links to the bikes they're looking at and can say, yes, if you move forward with this bike, you will get the rebate. So I do in the current program do some of that certification or pre confidence with the customer if they ask for it. But they would still need to make their purchase and then wait for the rebate to come. But if I could, I would really like to address that staff capacity question. So, and maybe I'll wait just one moment. Seems to have passed. So it would be really helpful to hear from council on where this falls amongst the other activities that are either mandatory by the state, which we have to do, or actions that are currently in exploration or in development from the climate mobilization strategy. So we have one conservation staff position for managing all of our energy and water programs. And moving forward with a voucher program would likely impact the development of other programs. There's only one staff dedicated to conservation programs. So there are requirements from the state that we must do. And just some examples of those are, in order to keep earning the low carbon fuel standards credits from our public chargers, we must develop an official monitoring plan for reporting the city-owned charger usage to the state. So that's a mandatory requirement if we want to keep earning those low carbon fuel standards from the public charging. And then we have a number of state mandatory projects related to water. So for example, the state's new non-functional turf regulation, there was a requirement that that be adopted into our own local policies, which City Council did in June. But then there's also the requirement that we do communication and outreach related to that. And for the customers that have, for the commercial and HOA customers that have questions about that regulation, they have a lot of questions about how that will impact them. So that's just an example of a state water mandatory requirement. And just one more that I'd like to highlight of a state mandatory project is we are currently in coordination with Sonoma Water and a GIS consultant to measure the square footage of all commercial properties with a dedicated landscape meter, and then also identify any large commercial properties that don't have a dedicated landscape meter and move them towards that. So those are some examples of the state projects that we must do. And then some examples of other programs that are in exploration or in development that would potentially be either paused or delayed, depending on where the potential e-bike voucher falls for council, are the development of a phase 2 of the affordable multifamily appliance replacement program with a contractor that was selected via a Northern California Power Agency RFP process. Exploring a partnership or an associated bonus rebate with the Bay Area Regional Energy Network's low and moderate income single family home program for building electrification. Looking at developing a battery management offering via OptiWatt, and exploring an improved online rebate submission platform option before our current platform annual renewal. So those are just a couple examples of other programs and projects in develop or in exploration or in development that setting up the voucher program would need to be managed along with.
So, I mean, obviously you're concerned about us kind of shoehorning this in as a greater priority to some of those other projects that you have on your desk. And I think that's definitely worthy of some consideration. Personally, we have a program that's working, and I see that the voucher program is an improvement upon it. And I personally would allow some patience if some of that list that you just gave us were one-time projects that would come and go and hopefully eventually give you a little more daylight to work on this. I'd be happy to wait on it. I don't see that a really super immediate pressure to continue with this right away, but that's where I'm coming from. I'd like to get some other people's feedback on that one. Go ahead.
I agree. I don't think there's like a huge urgency around this or like a, massive public issue that's like, we must address this urgently. And obviously, if you have mandates that are coming down from the state or otherwise, those are time sensitive. I did have one follow-up question. Can I ask that now or no? So when you mentioned like the way that the current program is structured and when people are at the end of the process and they're applying to get their check, they have to submit a W-9 to the city, which requires them to have either a social security number to submit a W-9 or an ITIN, an individual taxpayer ID number if you're a non-citizen or a green card holder. So in the voucher program structure, assuming someone is, doesn't have an ITIN or doesn't have a social and wants to purchase an e-bike, is the way to administer the voucher program going to help to reduce that barrier if someone doesn't have that ability?
I would need to look into that further. The W-9 requirement is related to our obligation to submit 1099s for folks that receive over a certain amount from us in a year. And so we do collect W-9 forms for all electric transportation and water-related rebates.
Got it. So I see one great benefit of this program, in my opinion, would be that the W-9 and the 1099 between the city and who we're paying would be between the city and the business, which certainly is paying taxes and has a EIN for a W-9. But there are many people in our community who don't have an ITIN or a social and are precluded from participating in this program because of it. And we don't require citizenship for being a care customer. You can be an out-of-towner and still get electricity in Healdsburg. And so I do think that that is a barrier that we currently have in this program that we should think about when we're talking about the population that we're trying to help support, which is a lot of our immigrant community, those who are working, in a large part of our community that might not be able to access this current program. Thanks.
I think that anybody who has watched government work is that we don't move fast, but we move with dedication and purpose. And, I brought this up at the beginning of the year, working through it. It's about going through the process. It's not about jamming this in right now. It's about taking our time, working through it with the process we have, and certainly would not want this to detract from any other program. I look at it as an addition to our current programs.
Thank you. David, first.
I think you have 3 that want to postpone it. So I'm in line with that.
Postpone it, but go forward.
Yeah. But
I didn't want to make sure
this isn't a right now. I think if the program's working, we can see like clearly we've got a decent amount it's actually happening. So that's great news. I really appreciate this discussion. Ends up being a little bit more complicated than an easy thing to do. And so I appreciate a little bit deeper understanding of kind of everything that you have, what our priorities are. And so I agree with my fellow council members.
Evelyn?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for pointing out all the things that are on your plate. We have a tendency as a council to just think you can just do this because we think it's a good idea. And we often do that. We add to people's workload. And so it's important for us to be faced with what we're asking for in, what won't you do if you do this, that kind of thing. So, and there's a lot of stuff in the climate mobilization plan that we want to be doing, and this sort of adds it to that work, and that's your work. I know you're the one doing all of that work, or most of that work, if not all of it. So, yeah, I mean, certainly postponing it and allowing you to choose when's the right time to try and fit it into your work plan would be what I would say, not like 3 months from now or 4 months, whenever there's a spot.
Okay.
Address it.
So I think the direction is, we'd like to see it come back when you're ready. So no expectations for a time frame on that, but I think we have enough interest in the council to see this come back with, some of the options. Is there anything more you'd like to learn from us now before you complete the item?
No further questions from me. I think the discussion's been helpful in understanding where council would like to see it go.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on now to item 8C, council request to appoint a representative to participate in water resiliency discussions. Okay, so I think we're all aware of the request that came from council member Marquez from Cloverdale, who's with us tonight. And the item is really nothing more than, finding a volunteer to see who would be interested in going forward, unless we decide we don't want to do this. But assuming that the item came back, I think there is interest in appointing this liaison position. So I'll just open it up for comment right now.
Well, yeah, thank you. I appreciate the email and kind of putting this on our radar. And so I'd be curious to have a little bit of discussion of, number one, does Healdsburg need a point of contact? And if so, does that point of contact need to be a council member? Does it need to be a staff member? Because we abut the potential water district, but our constituents are not members of it. So we clearly have an interest because, we're all putting straws kind of into the same aquifer to drink from. So there clearly is an interest when it comes to water. But I would love to hear maybe we have a little discussion on exactly, first of all, what is involved, and then what level of involvement, and is this a staff level position? Is this a council member position? I know Cloverdale has some broad language about, authorized to meet individually on behalf of the council with this group and that group. And I don't feel like that is right for us. So I just wouldn't mind having a discussion. I think it's important to have a relationship with the water district, the proposed water district. And so
so your question is basically the responsibilities of the role.
Yeah, like what is it we're this liaison, what is the liaison doing? What are they reporting on? What's the involvement? Are they just going to meetings and coming back, making a report? Or is it something, we have a lot of things where it's at a staff level where they're in touch with the water district and getting updates and like minutia related to policy things. So
okay,
those are some of the questions I have.
I think, I'll let everybody have a chance to speak here, and then we'll open it for public comment, and that'll allow Councilmember Marquez to address that question. Give us some idea of what you have in mind there, and anybody else who wants to speak at that time too, we'll bring it back and make a decision at that point. But who would like to go ahead?
I mean, I would echo what Councilmember Hagley is asking, to understand what the role is. Council, is it right for one council member to be doing this? What's the big picture? What would be the goals? Is it a staff role more than, because it's going to be pretty technical, I'm presuming too. So I worry about kind of where we're going to get with this position that we're potentially talking about.
Okay, so we'll go to city manager after comments are finished to answer that, I think, or chime in on that a little bit. But go ahead, Councilmember Kelly.
So I'm posing the question, but I'm kind of posing it to whoever's going to be participating in this discussion in the audience as well. So I know that the water district, the Alexander Valley district that we've been, talking about, that was presented to us a while back from Mike Martini, that they are going before LAFCO, and there is a process that they're in, and there's a follow-up meeting at LAFCO in 2 weeks. So it's not like in the next, if there is intended for like Healdsburg to take a position on whatever's happening at LAFCO, it's definitely not happening in the next 2 weeks, because that is not, I don't think that the cadence in which we operate is going to be responsive to that urgent timeline, unless there is a need for Healdsburg to have a position at whatever is happening at LAFCO in 2 weeks, which would be helpful to better understand that. I think also in the letter from Councilmember Marquez, understanding that there are several agencies, several water resiliency issues at play, whether it has to do with what's happening in Mendocino County with Mendocino County Inland Water and Power Commission, the Sonoma Water conversation about IRPA and what might happen in Potter Valley, what's happening in Potter Valley, depending on, which headlines you're reading. So how much of this request is about general water availability issues, which obviously Healdsburg and our community are deeply impacted by everything that happens upstream from us, and how much of this has to do with the water district in Alexander Valley and what's being asked in terms of our participation, and also just the timeline and cadence. Is this an ongoing forever issue? Because water issues in California are an ongoing and forever issue, depending on the year. Or is this a short-term, hey, we need to be in these meetings, and these are what those meetings are, and this is why Healdsburg needs to be there. And I totally echo the sentiments of my colleagues of, is this the right role for a council member, or should the city manager or our water manager to be a part of those conversations? I mean, obviously, these regional conversations are different than operating the municipal water part of our city, but just those are the curiosities that I have at this time.
Yeah, I think that this is an ongoing thing. It's very much like the Russian River Watershed Association. It's not so much whether we're there or not, but when you're not in the room, it doesn't seem important to you. And just having somebody sitting in the room knowing that, hey, Healdsburg is here, maybe we need to consider them. And I have worked with Adrian, I've worked with Andres, I've worked with Adam Gasca in Mendocino on water issues. I just think it would be helpful for us to, not necessarily, we have a little more flexibility that we have council reports that we can report back, and not so, official position of, appointing somebody. I don't think we would have a problem if we had someone going to these meetings and then during council staff reports mention what happened at the meeting. Not making it so formalized, but I think that ongoing, we are going to have regional water issues. And right now, we really don't have anyone that's recognized every time at these meetings. And I would be willing to take the time to go there, just being in the room, knowing that Healdsburg is interested in what's going on.
I just want to volunteer. Okay, thank you. So,
Sorry, just to clarify, Councilor or Vice Mayor Edwards, in what room at what meetings?
well, that I think we will get to that, and Councilmember Marquez is ready to fill in the gap. I would also like to ask you to address whether, if any of these roles, not just yet, are a voting position, because it doesn't sound like that, and I think it's important for us to know. But first, I would like to check in with City Manager in terms of the staff council question.
I'll offer a couple of thoughts at this point, and then obviously I'll be here with you to help if I can as this conversation proceeds. Several of you have touched on, but I think the scope of this potential assignment is important to define, and it, depending on what that is, might impact what my thoughts or guidance might be. As written right now, I don't have the agenda right in front of me, but it would be a liaison for water resiliency issues. That is an issue that we will be working on forever. The other thing we've talked about is a specific role related to the proposed formation of the Alexander Valley Water District. And there may be shades of gray in between, right? Something that might be done in 2 weeks, or maybe it takes longer, or something we'll be working on forever. But I would just suggest to the council that thinking about that is impactful here, regardless of what the mechanism we end up arriving at is. And that probably changes what what my thoughts or advice might be as to what you do and how you do it. Personally, I would have some concern about an ongoing water resiliency role being served in this kind of capacity. It's just, there are lots of things we work on that are ongoing issues, but don't necessarily appoint one council member to be the point person for that. And so how that works, I think would really take a lot of effort and take a lot of thought to figure out what that means. If it's a more targeted assignment, if you will, notwithstanding the timing issues that Councilmember Kelly raised, and I've seen the same information you all have, but I don't have a perfect prediction as to what this LAFCO process looks like. Some folks in the room might have a little bit more insight into that, but it's finite and it won't be going on for that long. That might make be something easier for us to kind of define and achieve. None of that speaks necessarily. Often when you want somebody to be a technical rep and come back and advise the council on whether or not you all want to take a formal position on something, that would be something we do at the staff level. In all candor, we haven't had a deep level of involvement on this proposed district formation, which could conceivably impact us, but is wholly outside of the city. Obviously, we have absolutely had deep involvement on both the staff and council levels on water resiliency issues and many policy related issues. So I don't want to suggest we haven't, but this is not something at this time that we've spent a ton of staff time on specific to that district formation. So I understand why there might be a desire to get more involved. Whether the appropriate way to do that might be staff, council, or a combination of the two, I think is something we, if there is interest in moving forward with this, we should think about. The same conversation we just had on a very different topic then comes into play. There could be some capacity challenges. But I think that's worth thinking about. I think if the city is looking to get involved in something like a district formation at LAFCO, I forget who said it's very technical, but it's very technical. I don't know if any of that really solves this, but where my head is at this point, again, what I would really suggest as you take public comment and think about this is the scope of this assignment. And once we zero in on that a little bit, what the right tool is to accomplish the job, I think might be a little bit easier to solve. And personally, I would recommend a well-defined scope. I think to designate somebody for all things water resiliency, as to the question about what room and when, there's going to be there's a limitless array of ways that the city can and will be involved. And I think a narrowly defined scope at this stage makes more sense and will make it easier for us to figure out what we do next.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
There was also one component that I didn't mention, I meant to, in my comments in the letter from the city of Cloverdale that's in our packet on item 8C that talks specifically about the LAFCO language. Cloverdale strongly supports the language prepared by LAFCO regarding the Groundwater Sustainability Agency and management. So there is some specific language in there from Cloverdale or in this letter that says the district is authorized to participate in a JPA that would act as the groundwater sustainability agency for the two groundwater basins, ... The district shall not act as a GSA in any capacity except as members of a JPA. So clearly to me, that was like some very specific language that had to do with LAFCO, that has to do with another entity, the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and Cloverdale's, I'm guessing, because it's on their letterhead, official position about not wanting this particular GSA structure. And so I'd love to get a better understanding if that is that to me was relatively clear language, and just understanding what does that mean, and is that something that Cloverdale is asking the city to join them in taking a position on, or just any context would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, that's what you had to comment to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we have members of the Alexander Valley Water district
I'm
here,
aware.
and I would like to hear from them as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're going to open up to public comment. I'm going to suggest, if you don't mind, that Councilmember Marquez go last, and stay up for if any questions, since he's part of this agendized item. And I think he's already he suggested this conversation, and so he may be able to shed a little light on that. But at this point, I'll open it up to anybody who'd like to come forward and speak on this item. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Mike Martini. I've been working with the landowners in Alexander Valley. I've been done 2 presentations to this council about the potential for a water district. I smiled on my way up because Andres and I talked earlier, and I said, you know, probably better that you go first, but we want to honor the council. So
I hope I got it right. Let's see how it goes.
I'm going to leave, not going to leave, I'm going to leave you guys some information that we've provided before with the map, as well as the frequently asked questions, just to remind you of where we are. But we've come a long way. We've been doing this for more than 3 years. We've gathered the necessary signed petitions from the landowners in Alexander Valley to bring it forward to LAFCO. And that's where we're at right now. But I want to be very clear, one of the issues that comes up more often than not, this district does not impact anybody's water rights at all, municipal or individual. Those are state issues. We do not get involved in them. But what the water district does do is it provides an opportunity to maintain a water sharing program that's very successful, as well as a frost protection. And even most importantly, they talked about it already, but with the changes that are taking place with Potter Valley and the ERPA and everything else that's going on about the resiliency and sustainability of water, we're going to need to have a seat at the landowners and the residents in Alexander Valley need to have a seat at the table, because they're going to be asked to pick up a lot of the cost of not only the infrastructure, but the ongoing financing of it. So we've had 2 hearings at LAFCO. We have one scheduled for September 2nd. So we're actually getting close to the finish line. And at the last hearing, the LAFCO Commission created an ad hoc committee of the attorneys serving LAFCO, as well as 2 of the members, Supervisor Rabbit and Councilwoman Susan Harvey, to meet with Peter Keel, who is the attorney representing us, to hammer out what we see as 3 relatively minor issues. You raised the issue of the GSA. We've already agreed to that language being in there. The other 2 major issues that are getting hammered out right now is the governance structure, as well as extraterritorial services. But we believe that we've answered all of the questions. I want to acknowledge the comments by Mr. Kay about the difference that's going on now. There's 2 processes. One is formation. We're almost through formation. Now we still have to get approval, and we welcome the input from the city of Healdsburg as that moves forward. More importantly, once the formation is found, then the more important work begins, and that is the partnerships. And I want to, through the transparency of the process and a commitment from the people involved, we want that transparency. We want the partnership, not only with the city of Cloverdale, but with the city of Healdsburg, as well as the residents and the other landowners in the county. Joining me tonight is Adrian Garialdi, as well as Dennis Murphy, who's the president of the Russian River Property Owners Association, and they're available to answer any additional questions. And I went a little bit over, and I apologize.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Next, please.
Dennis Murphy, Alexander Valley farmer, president of the RRPOA and petitioner for this water district. Once again, our emphasis is trying to set up a dialogue with the cities of Healdsburg, cities of Cloverdale, all other interested parties. We've spent better than 4 years meeting with groups, encouraging them to come to our meetings. And part of the ask of a liaison with you all is that we keep this information channel open on a regular basis. It's not really a technical looking for approval, although we would gladly accept your endorsement before LAFCO for us. You know, the sticking points that were mentioned by Mike, particularly the GSA, we have no intention of forming an individual GSA. In fact, if a GSA is formed, you are required to offer qualified agencies to become part of the GSA. Our purpose is to initiate the studies that need to be involved in looking at groundwater in Alexander Valley. And in order to do that, we need some power to investigate groundwater in order to get grants to perform some sort of, shall we say, exploratory information gathering. You know, a lot of water source information is private. Most of my water rights, you know, I have one. You don't know how big it is and you don't know where it is. And that's my private information. A district would be able to gather from the state of California general knowledge about how water is used in Alexander Valley, and particularly groundwater. And so the negotiations that are going on with the two staff or the two commissioners from LAFCO are to work around to get the workaround that allows us to perform Groundwater Sustainability Act functions before a formal Groundwater Sustainability Act organization is formed. And once again, I'm asking that you all look for somebody who acts as a liaison with us, is we can shovel information to, you can invite it to meetings, and because I think it's important for Healdsburg, a very lucky community that has two sources of water, two different, a river and a creek system that both during times of trouble can provide this city with water. We have one source, and that is the Russian River. And as you know, if the Potter Valley project was to be removed completely and no alternative was put in place, 6 out of 10 years, we would be suffering from a curtailment. And you just can't farm that way. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. I'm Andres Marquez, council member from the city of Cloverdale. I do want to make the request at the beginning of this item to open it up outside of time limit for questions. I think given the timely nature of the proceedings and the nature of what this could potentially be, that we do have maybe an open discussion about this.
I think that's, I mean, City Attorney, do we close public comment and just allow Mr. Marquez to answer questions for us? Is that all right?
If the council has questions for Mr. Councilmember Marquez, you could certainly ask him.
Okay.
And you can allow additional public comment after if you would like. There's no public hearing, so you have the discretion to handle it however you'd like.
Okay. And I assume there is no other public comment at this point? There's one other person, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I will say it should really not be a discussion. I mean, all comments should be directed to the council.
Yeah.
And the council can ask its questions, but it really is not a forum for discussion between the council member and members of the audience. If they would like to talk, they are always welcome to do so after the meeting.
Understood. Okay. There's one other person who wants to make public comment, Councilmember Marquez, so we're going to allow her to speak, and then yeah, you can have a seat there. That's fine.
Hello. My name's Teresa Ryan, and I've lived here for 40 years. I'm also the chair of the Water Committee for the Redwood chapter of the Sierra Club. We've been following the LAFCO situation in Alexander Valley for as long as it's been going on. And we have had significant concerns about it. And one thing I would just say tonight is I do think Healdsburg should have someone who's paying attention to this, who's objective. We've had a lot of concerns about this formation that is not complete yet. In fact, it was turned down previously. The application was refused. And then last meeting, a couple of weeks ago, which I attended, there was new information. And so now the discussion is continuing about the formation of Alexander Valley Water District. There has been questions about governance, that a small group of people will be making a lot of decisions and other landowners will not be included. And my other question about this is about the watershed. Is the formation of this district going to affect the watershed that is around it? Because what I understand is that the tribes who want this water district formed are going to be putting in some significant wells next to the Russian River. So we all know the relationship between wells and surface water and groundwater. And I just would caution the city of Healdsburg to really pay attention to this and be objective. And tomorrow night, I'm going to a meeting at Enzo, where there's going to be the Russian River Keeper and several other water experts who will be talking to that community about this issue. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And just double checking that we don't have any more public comment tonight. Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, we'll bring it back to the council. So I really think the big question here is the role and the responsibilities of a liaison. Should we decide to appoint one? Does that make sense to everybody here on the council? Yeah, David. Yeah, go ahead.
Just, I hadn't had my time to explain.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Really what the scope of all this is. I would say, the target assignment, that what the immediate need is that we participate, I would say the municipalities, City of Cloverdale, City of Healdsburg, in the proposal of the Alexander Valley Water District. And right now where things are at, the water district was denied and the appeal was allowed to continue. So there's an option that it could be passed or not passed. So I would say the immediate assignment is to establish the conditions that we would like to see, and then put that in a letter to the LAFCO Commission. So with my assignment as a council member in Cloverdale, I was really able to fast track that. I think if I left it up to staff or just something we would have at meetings, it would have taken a long time. So I was able to engage with the Russian River property owners almost like on every other day or daily basis, working with our city attorney and really establishing what the conditions that we wanted to have in our letter. And then I brought that back to the council at a following meeting. So that was one of the requests, is to also agendize, at a future meeting to, if there was a liaison appointed, that they can work on these conditions and bring them back to the council for full council approval. I think given the timing of where things are, with the September 2nd hearing, they might grant the appeal. That would give 35 days for the LAFCO staff to develop a modified resolution. I think it's in our best interest as a municipality to put our conditions forth. Once this water district formed, that's going to be a forever thing. So why we might have conditions right now. I kind of see this as like a prenup, for a future partnership. So when I say water resiliency, that's the long-term goal. Where if this district were to be formed, we could all form a JPA similar to Inland Water and Power Commission, for a seat at the table for our region, amongst IRPA, to also work together on groundwater recharge funding and operations, since if we're all pulling from the same groundwater basin, we all can work together to recharge it. So that's where the water resiliency effort comes in as a long-term goal of the district forming. So if there was a denial of the district, that would postpone potentially the district creation for another year. So I think there's advantages to having the district form, but also I think that we need to have our conditions met as well. So that's where I was able, by my appointment being, regional water resiliency effort, was that I was able to reach out to other agencies and get everyone involved. That I think that might be a benefit to moving this along and having it work long-term for all of us.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So just from a logistics standpoint, so we have a council meeting today. Our next council meeting isn't until the 7th. The hearing is on the 2nd, which I actually put in my calendar already because I work in Santa Rosa. It's real easy to go down there. But you're saying if it's approved, there's an appeal period for 35 days?
That's correct. And so
appealed by who? Like people that disagree with the formation can appeal and want conditions added?
The appeal was put forth by the Russian River Property Owners Association. They are the proponents of the Alexander Valley Water District creation and formation. So here today is the President Dennis Murphy, Secretary Adrian Garialdi, and the strategist Mike Martini that are working with.
I thought this was the hearing on the second was the appeal.
So what's happened so far, it was April 1st was the first hearing. On May 6th, the formation was denied. Appeal was put forth, and the first hearing for the appeal happened on August 5th. At that meeting, what the LAFCO Commission decided to do, and staff did not expect this, was to continue the process of the appeal and continue the discussion with the expectation that the commission would do something other than deny is what they decided on. So they also formed an ad hoc, as Mike Martini explained. So the ad hoc commission, those folks are out of town. They will be back at the beginning of the month. So I think where I'm at right now, I think it would be a good idea for a liaison to be appointed. We can meet as often as we need, hopefully get the city attorneys involved and have everyone talk and work something out before that date. I think it would be a good idea to agendize maybe at your next council meeting that those conditions and terms that we work on can be brought back to the council for full approval. So at that time, if we do have something submitted to LAFCO by the 2nd, we would then maybe, if the appeal was granted, that we would have 35 days to work with the property owners to have our terms and conditions implemented in the modified proclamation.
So what you're asking for is actually appoint somebody, and then we would need to have a special council meeting to discuss those items to be able to meet the September 2nd date.
So you guys do not have another council meeting before September 2nd? No.
No.
Okay.
Our next meeting's on the 7th.
So what I did with my council is I necessarily didn't have to bring the comment back to my council, but I was given the authorization that that comment would represent the city. So if you guys do appoint a representative, they would be able to, speak for Healdsburg on the conditions. And that was how we did in Cloverdale. Is I worked with our city attorney, and we came up with a comment that had very, very minor modification when I did bring it back to my council. But that's a choice that I decided to make, to just make that decision unanimous and have the support of my council, although I did already have the authorization. It wasn't necessary.
So I think I get that, and I see the value in Healdsburg participating and, having a liaison, or whether it's a council member or staff member. What I have a concern with is I don't have a staff report. I have your letter. I have a Cloverdale resolution. We don't have a deep dive staff report so that we're all looking at it. The public's had a chance to review and comment and provide different opinions. So I would not be in favor of just somebody going off and, all right, I trust that the council is going to support me on it. Granted, I don't doubt that we would pretty much be on the same page, but just I struggle with that aspect of it. That said, I do plan to be at that meeting on the 2nd. So I don't know. Those are kind of my thoughts on this. I support having some kind of connection. I think it's valuable. My daughter raises pigs in Alexander Valley. So
I would say when we had this item come back to our city council, it was like, it's kind of one of those things, like an elephant in the room. We just kind of we got to negotiate right here. So we opened it up with the property owners, and we kind of hashed it out right at the meeting, because I think it was a lack of time that we really needed to move on this. So, the fact that I was working with our city attorney, I think gave my council the confidence that what we were going to put forth was supported, it wasn't just a solo mission, that somebody was taking their own opinion and bringing that forth.
When you say you hashed it out in open session with the Property Owners Association, can you talk a little bit about what the issues were that the city of Cloverdale, because the city of Cloverdale and the city of Healdsburg are not within the boundaries of the district, but as said by the Sierra Club representative and, Captain Obvious, that all the water issues will impact the folks in the region because we're all in the same watershed. So can you talk about what it was that was hashed out and that you felt that the city of Cloverdale needed to take a position on to give kind of light to what it is that the city of Healdsburg might need to take a position on?
So I think some of those things that we talked about were number one, I think educating the rest of my city council on what was going on with the proposal. I think my full council might not have taken the same deep dive that I have. I've been attending the meetings with the property owners for a little bit over a year since they started their petition. And when it came to what we talked about at that council meeting, where really was pretty simple, was just making a clear definition of what the boundaries were. So I think the proposed map that was put out with the petition, some people might not have read that very clearly, and they didn't know if Cloverdale was in the boundaries or not. I mean, it's pretty clear cut that just drawing a better map would be able to do that. The GSA language proposed by LAFCO was one item that we did get everyone's opinion on. So that was hearing about just, not giving an ultimate authority that, we would also have a seat at that table. The other ones we talked about were the water sharing program and what would be defined now compared to maybe leaving things a little more open, that once the district gets formed, that's how it is. So I think I was taking some of the words that I heard from the LAFCO commission that we would have to potentially litigate, or LAFCO would have to litigate if some conditions were in there a little bit loosey-goosey, that we wanted to define what we felt was in our best interest as a municipality. So I think during that time where we were hashing things out was kind of just seeing where the property owners were as far as how they felt about some of these conditions that were in our proposal.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm pretty confused, and I'm not really sure what the city of Healdsburg is being asked to do. I feel like this is really a lot quickly and a little bit like a fire drill. I wouldn't feel qualified to sit in on the meetings and be able to come up with some wording that we should demand from this group. I don't know that any of us are really in that position to be able to understand that. So, yes, I mean, we pay attention to the water and the issues, and we know that we're all in this together kind of a thing, but I just don't understand what exactly we're asking us to do. And to have one of us work with our city attorney on this doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that either one of us would be able to really address the issues in a meaningful way, probably.
So I think
right?
one of the things that helped get the things that I've learned during this process and meeting with the property owners was, bringing our city attorney in. And once that authorization went through for myself, that gave sort of like, yes, I was mentioning this at council meetings for a year and nobody was really picking up on it. But it was like, I think once I got the authorization, me and the city attorney got to work, and he dove in, looked at the proposal, looked at the denial, and there's about, maybe a few documents on 3 agendas that would really tie it all in. And so we worked together. I had some conditions. He strengthened those conditions, and we got to work pretty quickly. So that's where I think, if somebody on this council wanted to participate, we can connect our city attorney as well with your city attorney. And I think that would catch you guys up pretty quick.
Yeah, the whole process that you're describing really isn't something that we typically would consider on our council. Like Councilmember Hagley said, normally we would have a staff report, we'd have more information, we'd know what we're talking about, what we're agreeing to. I'm just really uncomfortable with this whole concept, so I would not support it.
I think part of the the confusion here is, you know, on one hand, there's an idea that city council would appoint somebody to attend, listen, ask questions, report back to council, and if anything was, you know, actionable, then we would run it through our regular agenda process and take action. What's happening here is a very short time frame where none of that is possible. And so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're proposing sort of a set of powers for this liaison position that we're not accustomed to, where they would be able to, you know, participate in a letter, or you know, with the help of the city attorney and so on, you know, for the city's point of view, but that person would take all the responsibility to do that without running by the council. That's just something we're not used to, and I think there's probably some discomfort about that. And unfortunately, you know, the time frame makes that kind of the option that you're presenting.
I would say that's probably, I say, one option is to get something together for the September 2nd hearing. But, you know, another option is to have something for the potential follow-up hearing. And that would be probably 35 days later or another month past September. So I think that would give you plenty of time to bring that comment back to the council and still submit something.
It's enough time. It's not a lot of time.
It's not a lot of time, but it's enough time.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those things. I think even the opportunity on September 2nd, you know, at the last LAFCO hearing, just the fact that I mentioned that Healdsburg was going to have this on their agenda to appoint somebody, that became part of the discussion. And I think the commission does want to hear from the city of Healdsburg. So, yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Kelly.
So I agree with the comments, and I think, you know, in a perfect world, we would have, when we first received a presentation about this item, maybe discussed it at that point in time a while back to say, hey, this is an issue that clearly will have impacts on the city in some capacity, as well as the watershed, and that we should have a council member, just like we all act in different boards and bodies, NCPA, you know, different agencies, Russian River Watershed Association. We all are liaisons to various boards and bodies, and then we report back on those items. So I think because obviously the time does not allow us to have a report back because there's an action that's being taken, and obviously there's going to be future ongoing actions. Certainly we should be, the city and the formal city leadership should be engaged on this issue because of the impacts. I think my suggestion, if we have to like make a recommendation at this point, is that obviously the September 2nd meeting is a public meeting, and that any and all of interested parties who are out there listening and who are sitting on this dais should and can attend to hear what's being said. I mean, our colleagues sit on LAFCO. LAFCO is not this like, you know, mysterious body. It is council members and members of the Board of Supervisors who we have appointed to represent the cities and mayors and council members to represent the cities on LAFCO. And so we know those folks. Certainly, if there was ever a question, what does Healdsburg think? I imagine those members would have reached out to us individually to say this thing is happening. And so now, because it has become, you know, somewhat of a, you know, topic du jour, we are hearing, I'm imagining some people are hearing from people on LAFCO. I know I have, just about the curiosity of like, what does Healdsburg think? And it's like, about what? Specifically. So I think we have a city manager, we have a city attorney who are, you know, very well equipped to communicate with your city staff. I would say if there is an ongoing or an urgent thing, sorry, not ongoing, if there is an acute urgent thing that's happening in the next 2 weeks, I would have a comfort level with asking our city manager and if needed, city attorney to engage on this issue, possibly by first talking to the Cloverdale city manager, who you haven't mentioned at all, which is interesting, that it's mostly just been the city attorney, but to engage with this Cloverdale leadership to just get a better understanding of in a phone call brief, what is the lay of the land as they see it, and what, if necessary, you know, documents or process needs to be reviewed between now and the LAFCO hearing. Mm-hmm. I know there have been times in which we haven't had a meeting, but that we have delegated authority to the leader of our city, the city manager, to make a decision and produce something to represent the city. I'm not saying we need to take a position that's going to be, you know, X, Y, or Z, but to say that the city of Healdsburg is paying attention to this particular process. We understand what Cloverdale's issues are, and if anything needs to be stated, that the city manager would be authorized to produce a letter in partnership with the mayor, as we've done at times, but not to say this is our official position on this particular thing, because we don't actually know what that particular thing is at this time or have had the opportunity to kind of weigh in on it. That's my opinion at this point. But obviously, I think going forward, it'd be great to have a council member liaison, just like we do with all of the other important issues in the region, and that they could report back to council once we get a better sense of what's happening going out of the LAFCO process.
Okay, so I'd like to just see if I understood that, and then I'll go to Council Vice Mayor Edwards. You're saying point a liaison for the future who would attend meetings, report back on the way we'd have somebody with these other boards, though we're not really certain which meetings to be going to exactly, but I think that we're focused enough on that that's not a big issue. But in the meantime, to authorize the city manager to act on behalf of the city of Healdsburg with this immediate concern. Is that what?
Yes,
what
that's
you
my
said?
recommendation. And I don't even know if we need to appoint a liaison at this time, because we don't know what we're appointing them to do. And so I think getting a better idea of what the meetings are, I don't want to send someone on a fishing expedition to quote unquote represent the city of Healdsburg, to meet with Sonoma Mater, to meet with people in Mendocino. We all can do that. We all are representatives of the city of Healdsburg. And I think if we're going out and gathering information, that's totally appropriate. It's one thing to be representing the city in an official decision-making capacity, which we aren't yet ready to do because we don't know what those decisions are that need to be made.
Well, and on the second,
I'm sorry. Ron's been waiting for a long time. I'll get to you next.
Go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
the other thing I was going to add is on the second, we don't know if it's approved with conditions. It's denied. So there's a lot here. So I think I like the idea of having the city manager, making sure that there's nothing onerous that would impact the city of Healdsburg in preparation for this meeting. But really, I think you're right. There's two different discussions. The liaison is I would want to have a staff report with here's the expectations, like we do when we assign somebody in December, which isn't that many meetings away, when we're shuffling things around, with what the expectations and what that would be. But I think for the purposes of this, there's a meeting on the second, and we've seen all of these things where you could get approved with conditions or changes. Now we have something to respond to, and it could be part of a staff report that then we review that feeds into the discussion of an ongoing liaison and what that position will be.
Yeah, that really clarifies it. I think for the way we function, having our city manager work on this in turn, he can go quicker than we can. Since it's not agendized, we don't have a staff issue. And the second item is ongoing, because we're talking about, this issue isn't going to end at the September 2nd meeting at LAFCO. There are going to continue to be water issues that are going to affect us. So that we would want somebody there. And I think that Councilman Kelly's suggestion might be the way to get us at the table with the cleanest voice possible at this moment, the way we function.
Yep.
Also, the ad hoc committee that was referenced earlier, that's a subset of LAFCO commissioners that were asked to kind of work this out in between meetings and come back with a recommendation after the initial denial and then the appeal to reopen. Susan Harvey from Cotati is the council member on that, and Dave Rabbit is the supervisor on it, and they're working with attorneys and staff. So to the extent we want to know, we appointed Susan Harvey to LAFCO, I think, many moons ago. So that would be the person, if we want to know what the latest is with that ad hoc subcommittee, that's who is working it out, whatever it is. And the other folks on LAFCO don't know what the recommendation is until they hear it at the meeting or see it in the staff report.
Yeah, I had a conversation with her, and it was very informative. So, okay, so I think where we're at now, then, if there's agreement, we'll do a straw poll here, is to assign the city manager to see what kind of contribution you think is appropriate for this September 2nd meeting. And then in terms of water resilience liaison, to ask staff to come back with some better definition and scope of what that position would be, and then we'd look at it and select someone. Is that?
Can I just have a
Yep.
caveat that, I mean, maybe it's tied to if it's approved. I mean, because otherwise.
Well, even,
liaison
you know,
for-
if they are approved, the members of the water district here tonight have asked for partnerships. So they're asking for a voice at the table. And as far as I can, if I've understood you correctly, I'm seeing a nod in the audience. Thank you.
And,
So that's a start. That's one. Right.
I was just going to add, if there was a delay in the formation, there's always a possibility that we could form an MOU as a regional entity, regional group.
That may be down the road.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Jeff.
I want to respond to all of that and then maybe ask a couple of clarifying questions. I'm certainly happy on behalf of the city to engage. I think you all know my approach well enough to know it won't be my inclination to develop any kind of fresh positions of the city and express those before you next meet, but rather try to articulate what I think is general accepted interests of the city. Unless I hear otherwise, that would be my philosophy. In terms of the possibility of an ongoing liaison, I would like to get some clarification from the council on what, if anything, you'd like to see in terms of timing. For instance, does the council want to see it at your next meeting, an assessment of what that would look like? And if so, it would be helpful to hear more right now about what that is, because I heard ongoing, and as I said before, I'm not really clear on if the goal would be, I appreciate that the formation of this district might turn out to be a somewhat ongoing initiative, and there could be an interest in the council to have somebody engage with that from your body. And that would be one example. If the interest is truly ongoing water resiliency, that's a very different staff report from us in terms of who this person might meet with, what sorts of powers they have, what that looks like. So before we try to take a crack at giving you a report, it would be helpful to have a better sense of still what the goal is for that possible position, if that is something that the council would like to see.
Well, you've laid out a lot of options there, and I think you deserve to have the time to put that together properly. So if part of your question is, do I need to get this to you by September 7th or 8th, whenever our next meeting is, I would say that's too much to ask, but go ahead.
Could we say that if you determine in the next couple weeks that you think it's really important that this liaison position is created, we give you the authorization to come back and tell us that and talk to the mayor and agendize it? So if it is like, hey, we need a seat at the table, we need a liaison, it has to happen now, great. And if it's not urgent, then let's take the time and process and get it right. Does that sound okay? I'm seeing nodding heads.
And sure, we give you staff reports all the time that maybe you didn't ask for, so we can do that.
Do you like how I didn't say that, but that's totally what I was thinking? Thank you for reading it.
So sure. I think if we were, I'll just say, and I just want to make sure because this is kind of a different item for us, and I want to make sure I'm capturing the interest of the council here. If we were to do that, it would because I or we as staff identified what we thought was a need to focus on what I think you called the more acute issue, which would be a narrow definition of the scope. Otherwise, I think there might be a little bit of work we collectively need to do to kind of talk about what it is. Again, I want to be it next meeting or at some point in the future, give you all a staff report that responds to what you're actually interested in doing. So if we see that, short-term need, it would probably be a pretty narrow definition. And sure, we'd be happy to kind of give you some thoughts about that to help frame the conversation. Something longer, I'm not sure I really have my head around that yet, so we'd want to figure that out.
My thought is if it's not urgent, then let's target this second meeting in December when we do all our assignments. Maybe if it looks like there's some position at some point before that December meeting, we kind of have a discussion about what that new liaison role would be as we're all divvying up who's going to serve on what. That might be a good time to, to use as a target for a non-urgent thing. That gives
I'm comfortable with that, especially in light of Councilmember Kelly's suggestion that, go to a meeting if you want to go to a meeting. We can be there, right? Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
The other option would be, yes, everything that was just said. And if there is some sort of decision or process that needs to happen and we didn't want to appoint one person, we do ad hoc 2-person committees all the time, whether we need to write a letter to somebody or respond to a, legal issue. So if we wanted to, that could be another option. If that's an option on the table, city manager, if that's open, if you guys support that, to just say, we don't want one person, we want an ad hoc, and here's the reason why. But that would just be one other option.
Okay. So I think the question is, do you feel like you have the direction you need at this point?
I think so.
Okay. Well, you know where to find us. All right. I think we're good. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Contributing. Yeah, really appreciate
Forward
it.
to working with y'all.
Okay. Moving on now to council reports on matters of interest occurring since the previous meeting. Who would like to go first? David.
I have not a whole lot. I attended History Talks, Rails and Trails, about how the train came to Healdsburg. It was pretty fascinating. It's presented by our Station Area Specific Plan Community Advisory Committee Vice Chair, Matthew Lopez. And did a great presentation on that. Really fascinating, talking about how the supervisors are offering a certain amount of money to get the rail built, and it was basically a free for all, and people were forming, filing paperwork all over the place to try to get, anyway, fascinating. And they have another one coming up this Saturday, Farm Town Forever, Dairy and 4-H, FFA and HFFCF Traditions. It's 10 a.m. in the gazebo. It's great. You have kids running around playing and everybody walking around and you're sitting there in the slideshow and everything. It's great experience. And then this morning I met with Fred Peterson and Pat Abercrombie to talk about some fire issues and kind of listen to their concerns, and that was it.
Okay.
All right. I was fortunate to go with some members of the Senior Citizens Advisory Commission to Rohnert Park to check out the Council on Aging lunches. So I had lunch down in Rohnert Park at their community center, senior center. It was very interesting. Also attended the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee workshop that happened last Wednesday, and they are really digging in on looking at the budget, the flat budget proposal that is put before them, and they are coming up with some creative ideas, really working on how to keep the bistro program going, and that'll be coming back to us in council. And then I did the Sonoma Mayor Council members meeting on Thursday, and sat in for the mayor and heard a presentation that BAFA is coming back. They have worked their fine tuning. They are really working hard to have a better ballot measure in 2028 is what they're looking forward to, bringing that back, and a real split. They're trying to figure out more than just a parcel tax. There's 5 different areas that they're looking at, whether it be a head tax, a payroll tax. They're working with staff. They're available to city staff if they need more information available on the BAFA program going forward. I think it's a better way than they did it last time, that it was kind of quick, it was put out there, and so I think they learned a lot from the last attempt ballot measure.
Okay, thanks. Councilmember Mitchell.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, Councilmember Kelly.
As our representative on SCTCA, I attended a smart train and overcrossing walk at one of the projects in Petaluma that we're looking at. And it was very interesting to get to look at what their most important and kind of high pressing Highway 101 overcrossing is. So I got to experience kind of what other communities are, what some of the projects are that we're kind of competing against for the regional funds, and getting to walk that with Congressman Thompson, who is going to be representing most of Petaluma, who I don't really know. So it's great to kind of get to see what those community issues are down there and how much housing they are building near the SMART station on the north end of Petaluma. It is exciting to see. And also, I don't know if they staged it, but they were moving dirt and doing all the stuff on the day we were there, which is always, funny. And then I spent 3 days down in Scotts Valley for the Coastal Commission and really interesting meeting. We shot down a fracking proposal that is a very big hot button issue, and then also talking a lot about short-term rentals in the coastal zone and what small cities are dealing with, just like us, but have a lot more visitors than we do. So it's interesting to see the issues at play. So, thank you.
Interesting. I attended the ribbon cutting, if you will, for the new mural over at the Russian Riverkeeper. You were there too, I'll remind you. It was really cool, and it's a beautiful work of art from Jake Messing, who we all know now. And really happy to have that as part of our community and to show the work of the Arts and Culture Commission and the funding that we've authorized for that sort of thing is there, and so sort of a great initial event. Was happy to be a part of that. I finally made it to the Senior Center Bistro at the invitation of one of the volunteers there. Said, "You've got to come," and she was so right. I was overdue and had a great time. So much good conversation, and so I'll be back to that. Just to touch in with those folks was really a joy. And then I also went to the celebration of it was a couple different things. It was Breastfeeding Awareness Week. It was Public Health Center Month, and it was I think it's the yearly celebration they're doing now at Alliance for the WIC program. That's the Women, Infant, and Children program, and the breastfeeding program that they have there. And I did this last year, and very much like my last report, where I was surrounded by the cutest kids at the graduation for the preschool. This was just like tons of babies. It was really cute, but it was mostly a great time to touch in with a bunch of community members that I don't always, a lot of folks I didn't know, and I really appreciated that conversation in that context, and that program is really powerful and doing a lot of good for people, so I was happy to support it. And with that, I adjourn the meeting at